Good afternoon all, Russ Douglas 222 here. I've got another box of goodies from Eagle Vision Cam to review for you. This is an entirely impartial review. Masood kindly asked me to review this kit, and I was also involved in some of the testing of prototypes. We have the aluminium prototype here and the finished article here, so I'll show you close-ups of this in a second. Thanks to Masood, and thanks also to Bruce and Davey for the help in the testing of the prototypes. Without further ado, I'll bring the camera around and I'll talk you through the details. I've got a crib sheet of notes so I don't forget any of them, because there's quite a lot to go through. This kit should be of interest to anybody who'd like a fully adjustable scope mount, especially those of us who have PARDs and have had to shim them in the past. So I'll bring the camera around and show you more of what this is about. We have another excellent Eagle Vision Cam pouch with a zip and a D-ring for carrying it around. A net pouch for some accessories. You get two pouches with spare Allen keys, spare countersunk Allen head screws for attaching PARDs, Allen screws with spring washers, you'll see those in a minute, a lanyard wrist strap for carrying the pouch. This is one of the prototypes of the Eagle Vision Cam 108 MOA razor rail, and it's basically a fully adjustable rail for any scope, but it's also been configured with this channel specifically for PARD 008 and 008 LRF. I'll show you in a second the finished article here with the final finish, but I'll talk you through the features via the prototype that myself, Bruce and Davey, this is Bruce Phoenix from the UK Night Vision Forum, link down below, tested the prototypes. And this is one of those prototypes that Masood suggested I kept hold of for once he had the final production version up and running. So this is almost identical to the production version, bar a different top screw and different clamping nuts on the side. So it clamps onto Picatinny rail, and we have two bolts here that act as recoil arrestor studs. The clamping rail is sprung. On the final version you don't see the springs. It's a reach back rail or reach forward, whichever you prefer. The length of the reach back is adjustable by quite a long way. So this is a very versatile rail. There's a channel here which accepts the PARD 008 or 008 LRF. Or using the Picatinny rail, then you can then attach any scope via Picatinny mounts to the top rail. So this isn't just a PARD accessory, this is a fully windage and elevation adjustable scope rail for any scope and mounts combination. Clever stuff. First off, although this is Picatinny, this 80mm long section here you can buy from Eagle Vision Cam for about, I think they're about 20 quid. An 80mm long click-in dovetail rail, which is either 11mm or 13mm for BSA rifles. And a little bit like this larger PDRA 150 rail, it can click in, and then as you clamp down two bolts here, it clamps down onto the dovetail rail, effectively without adding much in the way of elevation at all. You can see that this fella slides over dovetail rails, and then via two screws in the side can be clamped down over your dovetail, and then via thicker vertical grub screws can then be locked onto your rifle's rail or rifle action. Straight off we have up to 4mm of elevation adjustment if you wish. You can have up to 108 minutes of angle of inclination adjustment from the front or the back, and by taking out one or two of these 5 Allen screws you can increase the reach back distance further than you can see here. So there's an awful lot of adjustment in this rail. As with a lot of Eagle Vision Cam's scope mounts, there's options of an M4 bubble with about 8 different funky colours. In the finished article there are 2 mounting holes on the left side, assuming you've got it in reach back mode, and 2 here and another 5 at the front. So you can have your level indicator bubble in about 9 different locations. And there's also a short Picatinny rail, screws in place here on the right hand side in reach back mode, which can hold accessories like laser rangefinders, IR torches for example, if you're using a night vision scope like the Pard. Yes, the Pard has a short length of Picatinny rail on the left hand side, but I've found that when you put IR torches on here to increase your range, it's quite difficult to reach past torches to reach the focus ring. So having a Picatinny accessory rail on the side is very handy. You see this rather bulky screw coming with the final versions, and this is one here. We have low profile Allen bolts, countersunk head. This is a Shader 8 sunshade from Custom Hunting, adjustable iris, and you can see this slots over via the flat screw with clearance. Let me just explain how you go about mounting Pard on the 108 MOA rail. If you remove the rear windage locking screw, you'll see the slot completely. And this is for windage adjustment. But if you remove it completely, rotate it, you then have a channel into which you drop your Pard, and the Pard has a proud rail on the underside, drops into this slot. You line it up with 3 of the 5 holes, which, depending on which position you would like it in, pop them in, tighten them up, rotate it back into place and replace. Towards the second half of this video, I'll explain how you use the rear windage locking screw and the 5 side screws to adjust the windage and the elevation. Masood being the top bloke that he is, you get spare Allen keys, spare countersunk screws and spare locking screws in with the kit. So I have one of the production rails here, fully anodized in black. You can see it's the eaglevisioncam.com FAP 165 made in England. We have 2 very positive wing nuts to lock it in place, and you can see that they've got the capstan holes, so you can just pop an Allen key through to assist tightening these up. We have 5 Allen bolts to secure the rail that slides back and forth, and top Picatinny rail is secured to that rail using the low profile front Allen screw and the rear windage adjustment Allen screw. I'll just explain using this tabletop Pard how to go about adjusting the scope. For windage alignment, you slacken this nut off just very slightly, and then you slacken off the rear windage mounting screw. At this point, you can now pivot your scope or your Pard left and right until the vertical stadia of your crosshairs lines up downrange with the group you've shot. Assuming, of course, that you've got your rifle reasonably clamped on a bench rest or similar. Once the vertical stadia is lined up and you're happy with the windage position of your Pard or your scope, then tighten up the rear windage locking screw, check it's still aligned, you nip that up tightly and you nip up this, and then fire a group and double check your windage is still spot on. For elevation adjustment, you slacken off all 5 of the screws slightly, you adjust the reach back or reach forward, adjust the elevation as you see fit. In my case, because of the Wildcats rail, I'm going to leave the rail fully forward, and then just nip up the front Allen screw just slightly, tighten up the rear one just a smidgen so it's stiff. There we go. And then you elevate it until your horizontal stadia of your scope's crosshair lines up with the group you've shot downrange, and then nip up the rear bolt, nip up the front bolt, check everything's still okay downrange, and if it is, tighten up all 5. With your rifle still clamped, I would fire a second group. basically adjust the elevation or the windage to suit. I'm a one-man band doing these videos, so rather than try and set up several cameras on one of my barn permissions to record from different angles, I thought it'd be better, if simpler, if I just talk you through how I would set up the Eagle Vision Cam 108 MOA rail. I don't have an ideal mount, but the MTM gun vise I have here is the nearest thing I've got. It's not designed for unusual shaped rifles like the Maverick, shall we say. But if you can use something like this to clamp your rifle, in my case with the PARD and the Eagle Vision Cam rail, it'll be FAC air rifles and non-FAC air rifles, which I would say are the main culprits regarding having the PARD reticle being low on the screen when it's zeroed. So I just thought I'd explain how I recommend you go about adjusting your Eagle Vision Cam rail. So if you can ideally clamp your rifle such that you can see your primary zero, which for most people would be 25 meters or 30 meters. For my FAC air rifle, it'll be 50 meters. The cheat, what I would recommend is clamp your rifle as best you can, as static as possible, where you can see all of your target to save yourself time, rather than going out to 30 meters or 50 meters in the case of my FAC air rifle zero I prefer with 2.2. I would just adjust your Eagle Vision Cam rail for your secondary zero, your close zero, the point at which the pellet first crosses your line of sight. Adjust for that, and it's going to be roughly on for your main zero, your distant zero. Go through something like Hawk's Chairgun Pro app. If you can picture the trajectory, my 2.2, when zeroed, you've got your line of sight, and when your curved trajectory goes up through your secondary zero, drops through your primary zero, 50 meters. If you backtrack, the secondary zero for 50 meters FAC 2.2 is about 16 meters for me. So I would just set up a target, work out what your secondary zero is for your rifle, your caliber, your power level, whatever. Put a nice big, fairly plain target out at that range. As simple a target to aim at as possible, like a sticky black dot in the middle of a large white sheet of paper. With your PARD in this example, on X0, Y0, fire a group of ideally 5 or 10 shots until you've got a nice tight group. And with that being 15 meters away, let's say for example, don't touch the PARD zero and leave everything static. Go and measure how low your group is below your aim point. Let's say it's 2 inches low at 15 meters. Rather than, I'm not going to dig out a calculator or anything, with the Eagle Vision Cam 108 MOA rail, from the forward bolt that it's pivoting on to the rear of the mount being about 143 mil I've measured. So if your group is 2 inches low at 15 meters, roughly over 143 mil, nearly 150, you need to raise the rear of your rail 0.5 mil roughly. And it works in increments. So if your 15 meter group is 100 mil below your target dot, then you need to raise the rear of the rail 1 millimeter. And the easy way to do it is just loosen all 5 side bolts, nip the forward one up till the rear of the rail just moves, but it's not slack. Then lift the rear of the rail slightly until you can slide in a 1 millimeter Allen key. Nip up the rearmost of the 5 Allen screws, fire another group, and adjust a smidgen either way, up or down. The same thing works for horizontal. It's the same baseline, 143 mil. So at 14.3 meters downrange, for every 50 mil out your left or right, your group is from your target is 0.5 mil. You need to remove the rear of the mount, left or right. I hope that makes sense. You just need to get it roughly, thereabouts, horizontally and vertically. Then you can clamp everything up and you can do your fine tuning with the PARDs X and Y, or your scopes, horizontal and vertical turrets. I hope that makes sense. I hope I explained that. So the key thing is not to slacken everything off on the mount. For the windage, have the front screw ever so slightly loose so you can just move the rear of the mount. And likewise, have the front horizontal screw just slightly nipped up such that you can raise the rear of the adapter without it dropping back down again. If you can't clamp your mount, you can still use the same principles of zero your scope, aim at a black dot in the middle of a white sheet of paper. At your close secondary zero, roughly work out how far off you are, so windage and elevation. If you want to use the equation, let's take your secondary zero being 13.5 meters away. Your pellets are going 75 mil low. 75 divided by 13,500, 13.5 meters, gets you a number, times that by 143 for the millimeters for the length of the adapter. That tells you how much to raise the rear of the Eagle Vision Cam adapter. And the same principle applies for windage as well. Hope that makes sense.